In March 2024, Xiaomi, a company best known for making budget smartphones, launched its first-ever car. Within 27 minutes of going on sale, it had received 50,000 orders. Within a year, it had sold over 160,000 units in China alone, outselling Tesla's Model 3 in its home market. The car was called the SU-7. It looked almost identical to the Porsche Taycan. It was faster than the Taycan. It cost half the price. And it was just the beginning. This is the story of how China's tech giants decided to build luxury electric cars, and in doing so, took aim directly at Porsche's most important market on Earth. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what China was to Porsche. For over a decade, China was the engine of Porsche's growth. At its peak, roughly 1 in 3 Porsches sold globally went to a Chinese buyer. The country's rapidly expanding upper middle class had fallen in love with the brand, the 911 as a status symbol, the Cayenne as the ultimate family upgrade, the Taycan as a statement about the future. Porsche opened dealerships faster in China than almost anywhere else. The strategy worked spectacularly. Then, almost overnight, it stopped working. In 2025, Porsche's deliveries in China fell 26%. Taycan sales in China specifically collapsed by over 50%. In 1 year, just 1,845 Taycans were sold across the entire Chinese market, a country of 1.4 billion people. Something had fundamentally changed. To understand what, you need to understand one number. In 2024, nearly 50% of all cars sold in China were electric or hybrid. Not 10%, not 20%, nearly half. China had undergone the fastest automotive transition in history. And in that transition, European brands had been caught completely flat-footed. Here is what happened while Porsche was busy building factories in Leipzig and Stuttgart. Xiaomi, a company that started making rice cookers and smartphones, decided in 2021 that it was going to build a car. Not a budget car. A performance electric sedan designed to go head-to-head with the best in the world. 3 years later, not 40 months like a typical Western car maker, but just 20 months of actual development, the SU-7 was on the road. The design was unmistakable. The sloping roofline, the wide rear haunches, the flush door handles, the low, aggressive stance. Porsche's own forum members described it as almost a direct clone of the Taycan. One reviewer put it simply, "The interior is not that far off a Taycan. It is faster than my Taycan, and it costs 67% less." That is the core problem for Porsche. Not that Xiaomi copied the design, though they clearly did. The problem is that Xiaomi then made it better in the ways that matter most to Chinese buyers in 2025. The SU-7 Max accelerates from 0 to 100 km per hour in 2.78 seconds, faster than the Taycan Turbo. The flagship SU-7 Ultra, priced at $73,000 even after a price cut, set a lap record at the Nürburgring in June 2025, beating the Taycan Turbo GT around the most demanding racetrack in the world. A car built by a smartphone company in its first year of production, beating one of the most iconic performance brands in history at its own game. But the Nürburgring lap time is almost beside the point. The real weapon Xiaomi brought was the ecosystem. Chinese consumers in 2025 do not think of their car the way European or American consumers do. The car is not just transportation or even a status symbol. It is the largest screen in their life. It is an extension of their phone, their home, their digital identity. The SU-7 runs Xiaomi Hyper OS, the same operating system as their phones and smart home devices. It controls over 1,000 Xiaomi smart home appliances directly from the dashboard. The center console has a 16.1-inch 3K screen. There is a 56-inch heads-up display. Xiaomi tablets clip into the cabin as additional screens, creating what the company calls a 5-screen ecosystem inside the car. For a generation that grew up with Xiaomi phones, the SU-7 feels like the natural next product in their digital life. A Porsche Taycan, by comparison, feels like a very beautiful machine built by engineers who do not entirely understand why you need your car to talk to your robot vacuum cleaner. And then there was Huawei. If Xiaomi was the stylish challenger, Huawei was the technological one. Huawei does not make cars under its own name. Instead, it provides the brain, its Harmony OS software platform, its Qiankun advanced driver assistance system, and its connectivity hardware to multiple Chinese car makers simultaneously. The result is an alliance of brands, all running Huawei technology, all competing aggressively in the luxury segment. One of those cars, the SAIC Shangjie Z7, launched in January 2026, takes the Taycan design inspiration even further. The side profile is virtually identical to the Taycan Sport Turismo. The target price was under 200,000 yuan. That is approximately 24,000 euros. The Taycan starts at over 900,000 yuan in China, more than 4 times the price. Huawei's autonomous driving system, Qiankun ADS, uses LiDAR combined with cameras and radars to navigate Chinese city streets without maps. Reviewers noted it could handle Shanghai alleyways in conditions where most Western driver assistance systems would disengage. In China's dense, chaotic urban environment, that matters enormously. The combined effect of all this competition was brutal and measurable. German brands as a group, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche combined, held just 5% of China's electric vehicle market in 2024. 2 years earlier, it had been 6.5%. While the total Chinese electric vehicle market grew by 27%, German electric car sales barely moved. German brands were growing in absolute numbers and shrinking in market share at the same time. They were running as fast as they could and falling further behind. And Porsche was the hardest hit of all. Because Porsche had made a specific strategic bet that the Taycan would be its luxury EV flagship in China, that Chinese consumers would pay a significant premium for the German badge and the Porsche heritage, and that this would justify the billions spent on the electric platform. That bet failed, and it failed for a reason that is almost philosophical. Porsche's brand power in Europe and America is built on decades of motorsport heritage, of the 911's evolution, of the sense that you are buying something that has been obsessed over by engineers in Stuttgart for 60 years. That heritage is real, and it commands a real premium. In China, that story is shorter. The relationship between Chinese consumers and Porsche is newer, more transactional, and more vulnerable to disruption. When a Chinese tech company can produce a car that is visually identical, technically faster, more digitally integrated, and costs a fraction of the price, and when the loyalty of Chinese consumers to European brands is measured in years rather than decades, the calculus changes very quickly. Chinese brands now hold over 68% of their home market. 5 years ago, that number was below 50%. Foreign brands have lost 1/3 of their Chinese market share since 2020. Not gradually, but rapidly, with no sign of reversal. For Porsche, the question is not just how to win back China. It is whether winning back China is even possible with the current product lineup, the current price positioning, and the current software capabilities. The new CEO, Michael Leiters, has acknowledged the problem directly. He has talked about making Porsche leaner, faster, and more desirable. But redesigning a car's software ecosystem takes years. Cutting prices risks destroying the premium positioning that justifies the Porsche badge in the first place. And moving production to China to reduce costs would require exactly the kind of partnership with Chinese manufacturers that brings its own complications. Meanwhile, Xiaomi is already planning its next model. Huawei's alliance is expanding. BYD, which sold 4.6 million electric vehicles in 2025 alone, is moving steadily upmarket. The Chinese electric vehicle industry developed new models in 20 months when Western brands took 40. They are not slowing down. Porsche survived a near bankruptcy in the 1990s by calling in Toyota consultants and rebuilding from scratch. It survived the Volkswagen takeover by turning a defeat into a generational wealth event. The company has a remarkable history of adapting to circumstances that would have destroyed less resilient brands. But this challenge is different in one important way. In the 1990s, Porsche's problem was internal in costs, production, and management. The solution was internal too. This time, the problem is external, structural, and accelerating. The competition is not catching up. In China, it has already arrived. That is the story of what happened to Porsche in China. And it is not finished yet. Next video: how Porsche nearly went bankrupt in the 1990s and rebuilt itself into the most profitable car company on the planet. Subscribe so you do not miss it.